You're listening to the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast. Just a quick heads up before we get started with this episode, I wanted to let you know about a free resource for listeners of the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast. That means you. If you are planning your next trip abroad, or if you're just getting back out into the world again, maybe you're going to an event or to a festival or to a meetup, that you need to be prepared for what to say when you meet someone for the first time. Download our free Spanish conversation guide so that you'll be prepared to have a conversation with anyone that you meet for the first time in Spanish. We give you a list of the most common questions that you'll be asked and that you may want to ask someone when you meet them for the first time, along with the responses so that you can be prepared when you have that conversation in less than 30 minutes. So to get your free conversation guide, just go to SpanishConversationGuide.com. Simple, right? SpanishConversationGuide.com to download your quick guide to prep for your first Spanish conversation.
Bienvenidos. Welcome to the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast.
Here's your host,
Certified Language Coach,
Tamara Marie.
Hola, bienvenidos al episodio 224. Welcome to episode 224 of the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast. I am your host, Tamara Marie, and as always, I am super excited to bring you another episode of the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast. So we've been doing a lot of song breakdowns lately and talking about some of the grammar and vocabulary that we use in those songs. And I hope that you've been able to find those episodes useful and that you've learned some vocabulary that you've started to use in your Spanish conversations. And if you haven't yet, then today's episode will be very interesting for you. I do love these episodes where I get to bring you conversations with people who are on different stages of their journey towards Spanish fluency. And today we are joined by Brittany, who is going to share her story about how she really started out learning Spanish, was very, very confident at one point, and had learned a lot of grammar. Had been studying for quite some time. And then when she went to apply for a job that required Spanish language skills, she was humbled to find out that she really did need to improve her fluency. So I'm sharing this because I think that a lot of times we get discouraged, especially if we've been trying to learn Spanish for a while. We have been learning, and we've spent some time away from the language. Maybe not completely. Maybe you still listen to music in Spanish. Maybe you still travel every once in a while. But if you're not in the practice of speaking Spanish on a regular basis, those skills can start to atrophy. And that's what happened with Brittany. So I want you to hear from her, where she shares her story about what she had to do when she realized that she had really lost some of that Spanish that she learned, or that some of what she thought she knew may not have been correct. And how many of us have been in that situation, right? We just knew we knew something, and then we found out very humbly sometimes that what we thought we knew, we really didn't know. So Brittany's going to share that experience and also how she began to close the gap and what she's doing right now to improve her fluency in Spanish. So I hope you enjoy Brittany's story. I think you will relate to it, especially if you're someone who learned Spanish maybe in school and then you realize that you weren't able to speak and have conversations and you're still not fluent yet. I think you'll be inspired by Brittany's journey, and she has a lot of insights as an educator as to how to make what you learn very practical in day-to-day life. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Brittany, and without further ado, I hate when people say that. Why do they say that? Let's get started with the conversation with Brittany. Hi, I'm your host, Tamara Marie, and I am joined on the podcast today by Brittany, who is one of our language coaching clients here at Spanish con Salsa. So, Brittany, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So, Brittany, I was so excited to get the opportunity to talk to you today because I always love to hear from people who are learning Spanish and hear about your journey, because there's so many people that listen to the podcast who are thinking, I'm never going to be fluent in Spanish. This is taking too long. I don't know what I'm really doing. Am I saying the wrong thing, right? And so hearing from someone like you who is on that journey, I think really does help inspire people. So thank you for joining me. And if you could start out just by telling us a little bit about you and what sparked your interest in learning Spanish.
Sure. So I am a career educator. I started teaching early in my career and I started working with students from all different backgrounds. And I realized, hey, I could be more helpful to my students if I can speak multiple languages. At the time, I just knew I was going to speak all the languages. I would speak Spanish, I would speak French, I was going to speak Italian. It was going to be great. And I realized really quickly that all the Spanish I'd studied in school wasn't enough. And so there was a disconnect in the programming that I had, and I did years. I got a minor in Spanish in school. I started in sixth grade, and when it came time to speak, I knew just enough to bridge the gap, but not enough to really feel confident. And so I started looking for different programming because all of the Box Kids programs is very much the same. It will teach you grammar, it'll teach you some vocabulary, but not what you can use in real time. And so that's what brought me to you all, because I'm also a fitness instructor. So I was teaching Zumba and I was like, I love this. This is helping me with this. And then it's like, learn Spanish con salsa. I'm already trying to do that. So let's get a little bit more of a structured program in place. And it's been very exciting.
Very cool. Yeah, that's funny. It's similar to my story. I started taking Spanish in school. And the first time I traveled out of the country, I realized very quickly that I really didn't know any Spanish that was useful in the real world. And I also took Zumba classes. So when I first started in the gym, I took the Zumba class. I thought I knew how to dance salsa, which was not true. And I went to my first salsa class. I was like, well, I know the music, right? I knew some Mark Anthony songs, right? And I found that also very quickly I could not dance. So I had to learn, right, how to dance salsa. So for me, learning about the culture and getting immersed in it was what really helped me be able to learn the language and be able to speak it and really have a connection to it beyond just, like you said, what you get in school and the grammar books and all of that, right? So for you then, you mentioned that you minored in Spanish, right? You've been learning since sixth grade. So what do you feel like was missing from your Spanish education to where you felt like you didn't have the confidence to speak?
I think time. So I started in school and I got to a certain level. I won't say fluency, but I was at like a B2, C1 level. So I felt very, very confident in my limited exposure. You know, I have a lot of family from different islands. So when I had conversations with them, it's like, oh, I'm flowing. But then time lapsed. And the longer I was out of school, the longer I was away from usage, it was like, oh, I know I can speak Spanish or I can understand Spanish, but I'm not practicing it. And I think that was what was missing from retaining. You know what they say, if you don't use it, you lose it. And I didn't realize how true that was until I went to interview for a position that was like a bilingual Spanish teacher. And they were looking at me like, why did you waste our time? Why did you tell us you can speak Spanish? And I said, well, let me change. I am fluent. I am literate in Spanish, but not fluent in speaking. And so I knew I needed to find even just a community to practice. And I was doing research and searching for different things, and, you know, even bought the Rosetta Stone kit, like not to like bring up somebody else, but, you know, buying all the things and realizing it's still not authentic. It's still not true to what I need. And I think that's what brought me to even looking for a language coach, is someone that knows why I need to use it, what I'm hoping to use it for, and tailoring the program and tailoring what they'll be teaching to that. And I think it's been eye-opening because it's been very humbling too. It's like, ma'am, you have a lot of certifications that say you can do this thing, and it's been a process.
You know, that's so interesting you mentioned that, right? So having that proficiency and then almost being out of practice and not having that exposure on a regular basis, you noticed that some of it started to leave you. So even though you had the confidence, it was like, ooh, I don't really have the ability anymore, right? Because I'm not using it. And I think that's so interesting because we do have people who come to us and they're like, look, you know I can speak Spanish, I just don't have anyone to speak to. I have no one to practice with. And you do slowly start to lose some of that proficiency. Now, it does make it a little bit easier, right? Because just like with anything, you have a little bit of muscle memory. So it's a little bit easier, but it's still frustrating, especially when you felt like, oh, I was at level B2, right? And now I'm struggling to get through this interview. So I'm sure that was pretty humbling. And I think a lot of times we're motivated by failure, right? That's the thing that shows us, oh, this is where I really am. Like for me, it was showing up at the airport in Panama City and not even understanding, like, I'm waiting for him to say dirección, because I'm like, I know the word for address, like to ask me my address, right? And he didn't say anything. I was like, I don't understand any of those words, and why are they so fast? And for me, that really was something that motivated me, because I felt like almost a chip on my shoulder, like I should do better than this, right? Like I have learned, I was reading novels in Spanish in high school. Why can't I make it through the airport, right? So I think that is a real motivating factor. So talk a little bit about the process. So you said that you were looking for a community, you're looking for a program, something where you could practice speaking. So how did you come across Spanish con Salsa initially, and then what made you sign up? What made you decide this was the thing to do versus, like you said, that Rosetta Stone, which I'm not going to knock. I did have free access to that for a little while because I had a friend in the military. We did all the Rosetta Stones, but it taught you really aggressive language. It didn't really teach you, how to say, put your hands up, have a gun. But you didn't learn anything really useful. So yeah, I think everything has its place, right? But to really get you from that academic to like actually speaking the language with confidence and proficiency is a process. So let's talk about like how that's kind of gone for you so far and how you found Spanish con Salsa.
It was early on. It was a couple of years ago. I want to say maybe 2018, 2019, because I was getting back into the gym, and a lot of the ladies in my class at the time were native Spanish speakers. And I'm, you're teaching your class and you're singing the songs, and they're like, you speak Spanish. So they would come have full conversations with me, and I would stand there like a deer in headlights. I'm like, I know what you are saying. I just can't retrieve the words to respond to you. And to a certain extent, when you go back to learning, a lot of the programs start you at like basic, hola. I know the basics. I know a lot of these things. So you feel like you're never getting through the program, but you have to keep clicking buttons to just fast forward. And so I said, well, how else? And I asked them, I was like, are you guys interested in language exchange? Because they were talking to me having limited English. But I felt like there was something missing even in supporting that. Like, even as a whole teacher, can I coach you all in English to figure out that we're saying the same thing and then also learn in Spanish? It just became a big mess for the last. And then you're like, she doesn't speak Spanish. She's cosplaying as a Spanish speaker. So
Spanish cosplay with your Zumba tassels on. And your
like, you might as well say you can also speak Hindi at this point. Like, and that made me, I started looking into some of the resources that they were bringing up, and they were telling me, since you already know the music, this program, and I found you through them. And I started with some of the, you had a couple of, at the time, it was, many moons ago, you had these short little packages where it's, here's the song and some workbook things and whatnot. And I was like, I enjoyed that. And I found that I was singing the songs wrong. I just made it sound like the song. So it was even, a lot of what brought me to you was the realization that I am that person that will just make stuff up and do it confidently. So then I really started to question when I'm speaking, because I'll say in my head, I feel like I'm saying the right word, and everyone's face would look at me. And then I'm very Southern, so I have this Southern twang to everything. And I'm like, I need something more. And I said, well, let me at least go back. A couple of years had passed. So this was 2 or 3 years ago. A couple of years had passed. And I said, well, I know that I enjoyed this program. And I went back to the site. I was like, first of all, let me see that they're still there, because, the pandemic took a lot of people out.
Yes, it did.
Let me see what's offered. And you were at the time promoting the Spanish conversation courses, like the conversation groups. And I said, oh, I want to join. And I clicked the link, and it was like 1 day too late for registration. It's okay. There's something else here. And then I saw the tutoring, and I was like, well, let me inquire. And I went through the interview with the placement specialist, and she was saying, it's obvious you know the language, but there's a mental block here somehow. So let's do, the 12 weeks. Let's get you started. And I really feel like that was the missing piece. Someone to really be able to say, unlike, the apps that'll say, oh, you got 100%. You're at this level now. I'm like, no, I'm not. I know for a fact I'm not. I am a whole educator. So we talk about fluency and literacy. I'm like, I know I'm somewhere down here. I don't want to admit that I'm even lower than that. So I'm going to work really hard, study all the things, but it still was the speaking. And she said the same thing. She said, I'm not going to assign you anything else. You just have to talk to people. So your goals are to talk to people, have conversations about your life. And that's been very motivating because I also need the accountability. And I think knowing that I'm going to meet with someone and she has a tutoring plan written out for me, and did you do your things? Because I can tell. I'm going to ask you a question. And it was hidden deep, deep, deep in the lesson somewhere. You have this conversation. And so I realized I'm a person that needs that accountability. And all of the tools that you've created within this platform, all the tools that your team created within this platform, it's well-rounded and full. Like, it addresses everything. You're listening, you're speaking, you're practicing, you have grammar practice, you have vocabulary boosters, and then the conversation hacks. Like, there's so much built into the program. And I went to some of my Spanish speaking friends and I was like, hey, do this with me. She was like, well, absolutely, sure. So I think the live connection and also speaking with native speakers, having tutors that are native speakers, because I'm learning words for things that just like you, I thought I knew how to say thank you for inviting me, and here I am. Oh, I took the long around the bushes route to saying the
Yeah, a lot of times we translate things literally, how we think it should be in English, and then we find out there's a whole different way to say it in Spanish. We're like, oh. But something you mentioned was so interesting. So you talked about this idea that you had this confidence, but then you started to realize that maybe you weren't always saying the right thing. And it's interesting because I think a lot of people are the other way around, right? It's like they know a lot, but they don't have the confidence. They don't even try. And also what you talked about with the whole idea of doing a language exchange. And this is something that I really, really, I have mixed opinions about, because on the one hand, language exchanges are great. You get to meet different people. You get to help them. They get to help you. But what I found is, as I got a little bit older and I started to have more responsibilities, is like, I just don't have the time to spend 30 minutes talking to you in English and then hope that we have 30 minutes left for us to speak Spanish. And then that's an hour. And then after that, like, you're not going to correct me, because as long as you kind of understand me, you're going to go, great, right? And a lot of the language exchange apps, like, you can text. So I know a lot of people that have text buddies in Spanish but never actually speak. So while all those things are good stepping stones, I would view them as like a crutch, because yes, you do have to think in Spanish if you're going to start to type. But now I feel like people are using AI and stuff. It's like, it's not a real person. Like, it really does sound like a robot. You think textbooks sound robotic. Like, ask ChatGPT to say something in Spanish, it is going to give you the most textbook answer, because that's what they're sourcing the information from. So it's all like garbage in, garbage out, right? So this idea that, like, we can sort of hack our way into this and, like, oh, if I do a language exchange, I know native speakers. They're not teachers. They're not language coaches. They're just speaking the language. They can't really tell you why something's said that way. They're just like, this is just the way we say stuff. That sounds wrong. And even if you say something wrong, you're like, well, tell me what it was. They'll go, no, you're fine. You're great. I'm so glad you're speaking Spanish. Or they'll go, I don't know, but that's just not it. I don't know what to tell you, but that's not it, right? So I find that you spend a lot of time without making a lot of progress, right? So having, like you mentioned, needing the accountability, I think so many people need that. And it's not about how smart you are, or how proficient you are, or how experienced you are. There's just something about human connection, right, that motivates us to get ourselves to our next level, which is why I believe so strongly in the way we do things. We have our group program, and we also have our language coaching, which is one-on-one, because I know for a fact when you're talking to someone on our team, especially, they're going to make you feel comfortable. They're going to correct you kindly. But you're also going to have that safe space to practice on a consistent basis, which is what so many people don't have. So I love to hear that you started to realize that that's what worked for you, and that you tried these other things. Like, you tried the language exchanges, you had done the academic thing, all of the grammar drills, you were passing the quizzes, right? Getting the gold stars, and still not having a conversation.
absolutely nothing.
So tell me a little bit about your experience with coaching so far. So what are some things that you've been able to do so far that surprised you, that you were like, oh, wow, I didn't think I'd be able to do this?
I will say, so I'm about 4-5 weeks in with my coach. A lot of what we've discussed so far was working on that mental fortitude. So working beyond the questioning, because she'll say, like, it looks like you don't trust yourself right now. And I'll be like, I don't, making the full face like I don't. That's the point. But, we spent a lot of time building rapport and she's pulled it out of me in Spanish. So it was like, yay, I can say some things. Very accommodating, very like she likes to celebrate all the things, which is really also exciting because I'm not really a words of affirmation person. But when it comes to the thing that's like, I know I'm struggling with this, she doesn't jump in automatically to autocorrect. She'll let me work through it during the session. And even though my sessions are only like 45 minutes, I feel like I get a mental workout every single session. And I know it's forcing me to grow. And so I will say the process of setting our goals together, like doing the pre-assessment, so getting an idea of where I am and then building based on the goals that I have for how I'll be using Spanish, what I'll be doing. It's been very, very impactful for the learning process because I also will say I signed up and then I was like, what did I just do? When you make a commitment to something, it's like, oh wait, that's actually really a person. And this person remembers things and she takes copious notes and there's like, the next step. It all built around. I'm almost slightly jealous because I'm like, you guys should have wrote my lesson plans for me. But no, it's been very, very eye-opening and I'm the type too, I will always be learning the language. There's never going to be a moment where it's like, I know everything, I'm done. And so I think having that support and having that accommodation, if you will, like that, not a crutch, but it's just like the scaffold. It's here to support what you already have and just constantly reassuring you like you're making the mistakes you're supposed to be making right now because now you're going to remember when you come back to por versus para or in, on, and everything else, all the prepositions. She's like, hey, in Spanish, we just say in. You don't even have to worry about it being on or at or there because in English, you complicate things. And I appreciate that because it does come from a very authentic place. And I can tell. It's not like, hey, here's a cookie cutter plan that we're just going to step by step. We're literally building out the next couple of sessions as we go through the process. And that's coming from the education world. I like that it's not that scripted. Like it's not, I plot Brittany into the plan. The plan is really built around me and I really enjoy that.
No, I appreciate that feedback. And I think it also just speaks to the fact that we all are very different, right? We all have different strengths and weaknesses. And when you're going into more of a formal education setting, it has to be one size fits all, right? Because they're trying to get everybody and meet everyone where they are. But we have the, fortune of being able to really work with the person and say, all right, here's what you need to work on. Because a lot of times, and you mentioned, I like how you said you're not a words of affirmation person. I caught the love languages reference. And I think that sometimes for people who are perfectionists or recovering perfectionists is the term I like to use, usually are not the best with words of affirmation, especially with ourselves. And so I think just having someone to call you out, not only on your mistakes, but on your wins and the things you're doing right, is so important to keep us motivated because it's so easy to get caught up in everything you do wrong. And yes, those things are great learning opportunities. Yes, you will remember your mistakes and you will not make them again. I've had my share and I've shared some on the podcast before. But it's also missing when you're constantly focused on what you're doing wrong and where you want to be and where you're not. That if you don't have that encouragement, it can be really, really hard to have the energy, the motivation to stay the course to get to fluency. Because it's not going to happen overnight. It takes persistence, but just because it has to be persistent doesn't mean you have to suffer, right? It can be a joyous process. And I'm very grateful for the team I have because I believe that it's a great group of women, not by design, just happened that way. We happen to be all women, but it's great. All very kind, all very personable, can really connect with you and kind of encourage you and will not judge, right? Oh, you said that wrong, that's bad, or, how could you, we did that 3 weeks ago. How do you know that by now, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I feel very fortunate. I'm glad that you've had that experience as well, and that's really helped you kind of get out of your shell, right? And be able to really deal with this gap of knowing that you've got the information in your head, but you need help pulling it out, right? Because I think that's what it is with even people that only are so-called level A1 or A2. If all you know how to say is, hola, ¿cómo estás? Say that, right? Get the ball rolling. But some people are afraid because they're like, ooh, then a person's going to start talking to you in Spanish. I'm not going to understand what they're talking about, right? But just having the courage to say what you know right? And let it be what it is, knowing that it's imperfect. I think is something that is definitely big to have that space to do. So I'm glad that you found that experience and, 5 weeks in, and I'm really encouraged to see where you're going to be at the end of your 12 weeks.
At the end, I'll be just signing up for more. Like, okay. Hey, you can't get rid of me. I'm back now. Let's go to the next one.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, once you reach that first goal, it motivates you to go to the next goal and the next goal. And that's really the key to fluency. It's like finding that momentum to keep going and to build on it without sort of that like, oh, that was too much, I need to stop now and take like 8 months off, right? And that's why we want the process to be enjoyable, right? Because it can feel overwhelming and overload. Like if you go take a course, you're like, okay, I've got to get to level C1 in like 8 months and I've got to study da-da-da. It's a way different focus than like, oh, I'm going to have a conversation with Kessia this week and we're just going to chit chat and I'm going to learn something and I'm going to review what I learned last week. And it's more fun that way. And also when you do it with music, right? It's also makes it more fun. So if you're enjoying the process, there's no reason you can't continue and move right to your next goal. So I love to hear that. So Brittany, what would you say to someone if they're listening to this and maybe they're in a similar position as you? Maybe they're thinking like, I don't know if I want to sign up for another program, right? Because I failed before. Or, I'm not really sure what my next step is. What would you say to them if they're like on the fence and they're thinking about their next step and they're not quite sure what to do?
I would say take the jump. Give yourself grace. Give yourself space to know that you're starting a new program, but this is not the program that's like everybody else. And I'm saying this, and I will give the disclaimer. I am not being paid to say this. I really do truly believe in this program just because it will unlock in you a desire to go a little bit deeper. It'll get you outside of your surface level studies. It will be tailored to you. And I think a lot of us are missing that just in life in general. We go to work, we fulfill a job, we go home, we fulfill our family duties. We are in boxes that people put us in all the time. This gives you space to be a learner as in the most authentic way possible. You get to be yourself. You get to bring your interests to your classes. Like I read all the time, so my hobbies are in my class. She was like, wait, you need the language to be able to talk about this because one of my goals is to get beyond like, hi, I feel good. I'm well, estoy bien. Like my goal is to be able to get a little bit deeper and connect with people in the world that love the same things I do. I'm planning to travel here soon. So a lot of that is required. If you are on the fence, you can't do anything but get better than where you are. Failing is a part of the process. You're not going to fail at this program because this program is tailored to you working through what it is you want to do for yourself. So give yourself the treat. Sign up and then call those other people and get your refund so you can sign up for more. Take that box back to the store,
I love that you said just like having that time for yourself, right? And I think most people that listen to this podcast aren't necessarily learning Spanish for a job, right? It's for personal reasons because they either love the language, they want to connect with the culture, with family, maybe they want to get a significant other that speaks the language, but it's a passion-driven pursuit. And I love what you said about just, we're in boxes every other time in our lives. And this is you taking time for you to do something that you want to do and dedicating it and having that space and then just enjoying it, enjoying that space, creating that space for yourself and just saying like, look, if I don't do anything else this year, I'm going to pursue this one passion I had that maybe I let go. Maybe I waited, maybe New Year's, I was like, I'll do it. Now I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What did I, it's spring already and I haven't done, okay. Now's the time, right? There's never going to be a perfect time. Life is never going to align perfectly. There's so many distractions in the world right now, but there always are. There's always someone else that has their agenda for you. And so I love what you said, Brittany, about just taking that time for yourself. So you inspire me. I love hearing your story. Can't wait to see where you are 4 weeks from now and 4 weeks from then and 4 weeks from then. Love to see your progress. And before I let you go, do you mind if I ask you a few questions in Espanol?
Sure. This is me giving myself grace, people.
There you go. Give yourself grace. It won't be too bad. I'm not going to ask you to describe nuclear physics or anything like that. I don't even think that's a thing. I don't think nuclear physics. See, there's English I don't even know. I'm like, stay in my lane. I don't know science like that. Okay. Entonces, Brittany, ¿por qué eres maestra de Zumba? ¿Cuál es tu canción favorita en español?
Ese es más difícil porque Me encanta música, pero la canción se llama La Canción de J Balvin.
Ah, ok. Él es muy popular hoy en día, entonces tiene sentido. Y si no tuvieras que trabajar, ¿qué harías con el tiempo adicional? Si no tuvieras que trabajar, ¿qué harías con el tiempo adicional?
Me parece que voy a tener mucho tiempo para viajar y comer comida en los países sudamericanos, ¿sí? Y también quiero vivir en España.
Ah, en España. ¿Por qué España?
No sé. Just pick the place.
Es un país hispanohablante y ya. Eso es todo. Y la última pregunta.
Okay.
¿Tienes una frase o palabra en español que te encanta? ¿Una frase favorita? ¿Una palabra favorita en español?
No, there's no reason behind this at all. Puede usar sus sacapuntas. I just love the word sacapuntas.
Y no sabes por qué.
Soy una maestra. Los niños todos los días necesitas sharpen the pencil. So I'm like, say this to me or ask me. Can I use your sharp? Yes. Yes, you may.
Una maestra de verdad. Is a true teacher. Entonces, Brittany, gracias. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me on the podcast today. Thanks, and hope to see you soon in the community. I will be looking out for your progress, and have a great rest of your day.
Gracias por invitarme.
Muy bien. Hasta luego. Chao. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Brittany. I really resonated with her story. We actually had a lot in common about starting with Zumba and really getting out there. The one thing I don't have in common with her is, though, having that confidence without the experience. I think I was very shy in the beginning, and I started to just learn that mistakes are part of the process. But it really was hard for me to get to that point. And for me, music really helped me because I really didn't have the same hangups about the language when there was a song involved, you know? So whatever it is that you find that will help you sort of shed that fear so you can build up your confidence and your fluency, I encourage you to find that for yourself. And if you're like Brittany and you find that some accountability, specifically professional accountability, to you getting to your goal of speaking Spanish fluently, or even just improving your conversational Spanish. Maybe you just have a trip that you're preparing for this summer and you want to be able to talk to people at the place that you go, and you don't want to feel like you're lost or dependent upon a friend to translate or interpret what's happening for you. I don't know about you, but I definitely don't like to be the only one in the room that doesn't know what's going on. So if you want to try out the program that Brittany is finding success in, make sure you go to our website, SpanishConsalsa.com/coach. And that is where you'll find all about our one-on-one language coaching program. This is where we work with you individually, not with a cookie cutter program, but to actually figure out what are your strengths, your weaknesses, your goals, and your interests. And we tailor a program specifically to get you speaking more Spanish, and to do so with a supportive coach. All of the coaches on our team at Spanish con Salsa, if you've listened to the podcast, you know I brag about the team. If you're a part of our community, then you know for yourself that we have some of the best language coaches out there who are very patient with you, but will also push you in a very gentle and loving way to begin to speak the Spanish that you know, and to help correct you and guide you to really shore up some of those mistakes that you might be making that you're not aware of. So if you're interested in a personalized approach, that's not just an AI or an app that you're talking to, but a real live human, because hopefully you're learning Spanish because you want to talk to real people, then I encourage you to check out our program. There's no obligation. We will give you a free assessment if you just want to see where you are, and then we can decide together if it makes sense for us to work together and what the next best steps for you are. So if you're interested, please go to SpanishConsalsa.com/coach. That is how you start the process. Again, there's no obligation to just have that conversation. And if you feel like, it's a little bit intense to do one-on-one, you're not quite ready for it, I encourage you to overcome that fear and just give it a shot. What do you have to lose? It's just one conversation. And trust me, if you can get over the discomfort of scheduling this one call with our team, then you will have what it takes to get to fluency, because you will have to do that over and over again. And the only way to get better at it is with practice. And that's what we help you do in a consistent, structured consistent and structured program that is tailored just for you and to your interests. So it works. We've had hundreds of people come through the program who have been from beginners all the way to intermediate level that just have some things they need to refine and work on, all with the goal of getting to fluency. So if that is something that you want to do, I encourage you to schedule a call with our team, SpanishConsalsa.com/coach, to learn more. As always, I hope something that you heard in this episode has taken you one step closer from Spanish beginner to bilingual. Hasta la próxima.
Thank you for listening to the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast at learnspanishconsalsa.com.